Cenk Uygur got owned by an independent voter with his feelings over facts analysis of Joe Biden. Joe Biden's going to drop out. He's going to try to guarantee you. Cenk Uygur said that Joe Biden is going to drop out by today. That's what he said last week. When he was saying that, I was saying, ain't no way that Joe Biden's going to drop out. I am an independent voter, right? I am an independent voter. We're the ones that are going to swing this election one way or the other. So you can listen to Cenk, who's probably a registered Democrat, just like his co-host, Anna Kasparian, criticizing the Democrats all day long about how horrible they are. Meanwhile, she's still supporting them. Now, you can vote for Democrats, but why are you registered as a Democrat in California, in a state where you don't need to register as a Democrat? She can support whoever she wants in the primary, right, without being a registered Democrat. So the only reason for her to be a registered Democrat if she's trying to support the Democrats. And if they're so awful, why the hell are you supporting them, right? I realize just as well as they do how bad Democrats are, but because of that, I'm not supporting them, right? It's like the reality matches the rhetoric. I say Democrats are frauds, they're liars, they're weak. They believe in incrementalism. They believe in putting out draft version of policies that, they sound good. They have good intentions perhaps, but the execution is horrific. And then you don't hear about that from the left-wing media. Let's get into it. I'm going to crush Cenk Uygur in the nonsense that he's been saying about Joe Biden dropping out of this race. His whole analysis is based on his feelings, which I agree with. I agree with Cenk Uygur. My feelings mirror his. I feel there's no way people are going to choose Joe Biden over any other Democrat. I feel like a standard Democrat would do way better than Joe Biden, right? However, I don't base my decisions based on feelings. I base them based on facts. So I put my feelings aside, which again match with Cenk Uygur for the most part. I look at the data. The data says you're wrong. I go with the data. I'm not going to ignore the data. I'm not looking at one poll. I'm looking at multiple polls. The aggregate of the polls that show candidates doing against, competing against Trump. Kamala Harris does 1 point better than Joe Biden. So she's the leading Democrat, not a generic Democrat. Kamala Harris is the leading Democrat. Joe Biden's 1 point below her. Then there's a big gap. And then you have the alternatives. And each one you have is just so far, it's not a chance. But there actually is a chance. And I'll cover that in the end of the video. There is a fact-based, logic-based explanation for why another Democrat might actually do better than Joe Biden, even though the polls do not agree with that. But I'm going to make that actual argument, unlike Cenk, who just says, there's no way. Based on what? Show us the evidence. Show us what is the basis for this. You feel that way? Sure, I feel that way too, right? Let's get into it. How much we gonna pay for gas in the Joe Biden economy? I'm an independent voter and an independent thinker. I have never been a registered Democrat or Republican, and I currently am not a registered Democrat or Republican. Unlike Cenk, which I assume he's a registered Democrat because he was running for president as a Democrat, and his co-host, Anna Kasparian, also a registered Democrat. This is a woman who spends all day talking about how bad the Democrats are, how bad Joe Biden is, right? Meanwhile, she's supporting that same party. So she's got one kind of rhetoric online, and then in her real life, she's doing something else. She's in California. She doesn't need to be registered as a Democrat. The only reason to be registered as a Democrat is if you support the party. If you support the party, then why are you saying the stuff that you're saying online? Now, I don't support the Democratic Party, but I also have a lot of problems with the Democratic Party. But here's where I want to set the record straight, because a lot of misinformation comes from left-wing media channels who will benefit from Trump winning, right? I posted a video before, David Pakman admitting the same thing that I've been saying for years, that Donald Trump is good for business as far as liberal media and independent left-wing media. Whatever craziness Donald Trump's about to do, this is going to be good for business. People like Humanist Report, people like the Young Turks, they are going to make a killing under a Donald Trump presidency. So a little bit of a conflict of interest, and you got to think about that when you're listening to these people, right? If Donald Trump wins, you and I, we are the ones who are going to suffer the consequences, right? People like the Young Turks, who can broadcast from anywhere in the country, even the world. So no matter what happens, they're good. Their business is going to go up. And again, they can do stuff remotely. Can you work remotely? If things go crazy, can you just move anywhere in the country or the world and still make your money and pay your bills? Well, they can. So know this, they're not with you, right? They are not with you. I may be online making YouTube videos, but I don't make any money doing this. I don't plan to make any money doing this. My channel is small and always will be small because I refuse to chase trends and chase the algorithm and pander to my audience, right? One of my top subscribers, shout out to Jock, I've called him Blue MAGA twice. This is a guy who loves my videos and comments on a ton of my videos, and he's very, very supportive for the channel. Because my channel is so small, you know, losing him would be a big deal, right? I've already lost people just like him, and it's a big deal when you have a small channel, but yet, even to him, I tell him like it is, right? I tell him like it is, because I'm not here to pander to anyone, I'm not here to make anybody feel good. But what is Cenk here to do, right? So he wants to say that people supporting Joe Biden are Blue MAGA. Blue MAGA. Well, I am not Blue MAGA, right? I'm not a Democrat. I am not part of any tribe. I have issues, strong issues with American progressives, strong issues with American liberals. I have very strong issues with the corrupt Democratic Party. I think, and let's start with this, I 100%, well, let's say 100%, for the most part, I agree with Cenk. We feel the same way. I feel that there has to be a better option. I feel that a generic Democrat would do much better than Joe Biden, obviously, right? I feel that Joe Biden, I don't know if he can survive another 4 years in office. I feel like people saying, oh, Joe Biden should go out there and be on a campaign trail and whatever. I think Cenk even said this kind of ridiculous thing, so that's where I have a departure with him. I don't think he should do that. I think Joe Biden should stay in the basement, right? Because I recognize that he had a collapse during the debate, right? That's not where he's at in terms of cognitively speaking. That was, you start with a baseline of him having cognitive issues, and then you put the stress, lack of sleep or whatever, and he had a kind of a collapse. However, I've looked at his interviews after that, and basically, in my view, his best right now is not good enough to really win, and not good enough to be president, not good enough to go out there and negotiate with other countries. He's just not sharp enough. He's just not with it enough. I would say 8 months ago, because I live in reality, I had stronger views in terms of where Joe Biden was versus probably the average person. Because a lot of rhetoric about him, cognitive issues, doesn't know where he is. But I'm looking at reality. Joe Biden was not stumbling around, not knowing where he is and getting lost and fumbling around and saluting no one and sitting in an invisible chair. Like, most of that stuff was nonsense. I recognize that he had cognitive issues for sure, just like Trump does. And I believe that Trump was actually really further along than Joe Biden. However, since the debate, it seems that he has actually significantly declined. And as a person who has people with dementia in my family, I already lost someone to dementia in my family, so I have direct experience with dementia. I know how it is. I'm expecting Joe Biden to continue a rapid decline. And again, I don't know that he can survive another 4 years. Joe Biden should not be the president. I don't want him to be president. Even if he was super sharp, I believe he's a liar, he's a fraud, he's corrupt, he's weak. I don't care that he's done more than any other president. That's not how, I don't get caught up in this rhetoric of like historic. I don't care about historic, right? You hire someone to do a job, and let's say they never show up for work, and then they show up 2 days in a row. That's historic. I'm not impressed, bro. I'm not impressed. You haven't showed up to work for a month. The fact that you showed up for work 2 days in a row, I don't care that that's historic, right? Now, that's just an extreme analogy to let you understand the difference of the way that I think versus the way that someone like Kyle Kalinske or a lot of these same progressives that are sitting here, Biden should step down, step down. We're not giving any solutions about how that would look like and who should replace him, right? That's how they were thinking, right? I remember Kyle Kalinske, I was so frustrated when he was saying, when he was defending Joe Biden, saying, Joe Biden he exceeded my expectations. I'm just like, bro, what does it matter that Joe Biden exceeded your expectations? Who the hell cares about your expectations, right? Like, it's all about him, right? What matters to me is our country has a lot of serious problems that require a lot of serious work, aggressive work, problems that need to be solved with absolute aggression, right? And what I expect from a president, what will impress me, is a president who aggressively goes after and tries to solve a lot of these issues. So, with that being said, if you're a president of the United States and you're not almost every other day talking about getting money out of politics, right? If you're not talking about attacking something that is fundamentally part of the reason the system is broken and why things are the way they are, if you're not addressing those kind of things, you know, people talking about inflation, right-wing media lying and talking about Trump gas prices were low. Listen, I don't listen to that or believe in that nonsense, right? We know why the gas prices were low. It had nothing to do with Trump, right? However, a big part of inflation had to do with something that Joe Biden didn't cause, but he didn't do much about. Right? Again, I don't care about, because the thing about it is we have had a lot of presidents for decades that have failed us. So you doing much better than a bunch of failing presidents, it's not impressive to me. I don't care about how the other presidents did. Right? It's not about a comparison. That's not how I operate. Right? So the bottom line is, I agree with Cenk in terms of feelings. I feel the same way that he does. I probably feel more aggressively against Joe Biden because, again, I don't think he can survive another 4 years. I don't think he should be president. I don't think he should have been president from the first time he got elected. I was never a Biden fan, never an Obama fan. The only person that even got my interest was Bernie Sanders. That's it, right? That's where I'm coming from, right? Cenk and Anna can't say that, right? These are registered Democrats who were previously pushing these people who they now, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. No. I never fell for it. I saw these people for who they were, right? I never fall. You never see me out here promoting any presidents, right? I don't have no super PAC, unlike the Young Turks, right? I'm not the one trying to run for president as a Democrat like Cenk, right? So here's the reality. Knowing how bad Joe Biden is even before you consider his cognitive state currently. Again, eliminate his cognitive state. Let me also give you full context. From the minute that Joe Biden won the election, I was aggressively hammering some of these same people who now want to talk, oh, Joe Biden should step down. I was telling them that Joe Biden, you guys need to hammer. You made all this noise and protesting or whatever, and then Joe Biden gets in office and you're sitting on your hands like, oh, give him time. I was the one who was yelling and screaming, guys, now getting him into office, that's just the beginning. The real work comes from once he gets elected. You guys need to be hammering him, making sure he's delivering on his promises. But people are like, oh, he just started. It's only been a few months. Or it's only been a year. You got to give him a chance. I mean, when he wasn't even talking about some of the stuff that he ran on, right? So it's not a matter of like we expect him to solve everything magically. But if you're not even talking about some key issues that you ran on, those are major red flags, right? And knowing how things have gone, we have a track record of how things were in this country. Anyone who's really serious about this and really cares about it would have been like, let's go to war and push these Democrats to do some work, right? What are you guys waiting on? I was saying from the beginning, if they don't fight and if they don't step it up, Trump is going to win in the next election. I was saying that from the very beginning when Joe Biden won. I said that the path that he's on is heading us to Trump winning the next time, right? What's happening right now is how we got Trump in the first place, and he's doing it again. That's, remember, a contrast with me and these people in liberal and progressive media, right? I said, you guys need to fight. They were just, I don't know what, they're too busy making videos trying to back and forth and whatever. Remember the Build Back Better, right? They did their little thing about Medicare for all. Everyone went out and they got their little videos and posted little videos. Yeah, we're out here in the street fighting. And then Build Back Better came. Where was the fight? It must have been like 10, 20 people went out there and pushed for it. That was a major bill that had a lot of stuff that these progressives claim that they're serious about, right? Maybe if they had actually fought for it seriously, with even half the effort they put into Medicare for all, and it had passed, even half of it had gotten passed, then maybe Joe Biden his ranking wouldn't be so low, so we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. But they enabled Joe Biden to be as weak as he's been, even considering the accomplishments that he's made that right-wing media doesn't want to acknowledge, right? He's done some good work. He's had some accomplishments, but he hasn't done nearly enough. Case in point, like I said, inflation. He didn't cause inflation. I mean, I'm sure he didn't cause inflation. The people trying to put it as, oh, it's Joe Biden's fault, that's nonsense. But what I do put on Joe Biden is he didn't do enough to fight it, because we had corporate greed that he refused to push back against, right? These companies taking advantage of the pandemic to raise their prices, claiming about all kind of things. Oh, it's the whatever, the supply line, whatever, right? Where was Joe Biden's task force going out there and fighting for the American people and making sure, putting a watchdog, making sure that these corporations were not taking advantage of the American citizens? We got poor people out there, low middle income people out there that have to be paying all these crazy prices. And you're going to allow any of that to be unnecessary price increases? I mean, it's one thing with the supply line stuff, whatever, but there was above and beyond that happening. Did he go out there and fight? And he don't have to be on anyone. He can task somebody with that. He can anoint someone. You're going to be the one. I want you to be the watchdog of these corporations. And let's do something to stop that. He didn't do that. So now the right wing have their good talking point of, oh, inflation. So when you talk about, oh, all these jobs under Biden, right? Or when you talk about salaries going up under Biden, it's like, oh, so what? Salaries go up, but if inflation exceeds that, people are still suffering. They can't pay their groceries. They can't pay for the gas, right? So even though the reason for that is not what the right-wing media claims it to be, Joe Biden didn't do enough to address those kinds of issues, right? So here is the reality, and this is where Cenk is absolutely wrong. Even though we both agree that Joe Biden should not be the one, I don't think he can be the one. I don't think he can survive. Who knows how long he's going to last? I'm just waiting for him to collapse again at the wrong time during some kind of international event, embarrass the country. That's what I'm waiting for, right? And if I represented the average American, I would be like, listen, we need to get rid of this guy, right? And I would support just about any other Democrat over Joe Biden. But I'm not the average American, right? I am very politically engaged. I have spoken at many, many city halls. I've been fighting with my Democratic mayor for a while. I don't think he likes it when he sees me showing up because, I don't play no games, right? So I'm not just here online talking stuff. I'm out there living it. I'm actually actively engaged, but I'm not a Democrat, right? And the reality is the average American, he wants to say, oh, it's blue MAGA, blue MAGA. Forget about blue MAGA. We know, yes, there's the people who are watching Brian Tyler Cohen and MSNBC. They're going to vote for Joe Biden no matter what. Right? They're not going to acknowledge how bad things are necessarily, although it's getting very hard to do that. But forget about them. What is going to swing this election? The people in the middle, the independents, right? I am an independent. And what are we independents thinking? Now, if I, as an independent, am compelled to vote for this corpse to prevent Donald Trump from winning, and this is me knowing I have the knowledge of how bad the Democrats are. The average independent does not. They're not engaged in politics like me. They don't know all the stuff about Joe Biden that I know. They don't know all the stuff about the Democrats that I know, right? They know surface level stuff they get from CNN and MSNBC, right? So me knowing even more bad stuff about the Democrats and having a much more negative, I'm sure if I ask my liberal friends how they feel about Joe Biden, whatever, I'm sure they may think lowly of him based on what's happening now, but I'm even lower than that. And if me, the one who has the most negative thought of the party and the candidate, is saying, I am more motivated to go vote for Joe Biden, even though I feel that his presidency was a letdown to me, it was a disappointment to me. If I am even more motivated, and I hate the idea of rewarding them for them giving us crumbs. If even I am getting more motivated to vote for Joe Biden just to stop Donald Trump, what do you think the people who are not blue MAGA, who are independents, who aren't watching TYT and all this kind of stuff, maybe not even watching MSNBC, not politically activated, what do you think they are thinking about the idea of another Trump presidency? You think they give a rat's ass that Joe Biden is a corpse and he might not survive or whatever? Because they know if he wins, which is unlikely, but if he wins, right, and things get too bad, Kamala Harris steps up and she's ranking higher than him in the polls, right? But the bottom line is nothing drastic is going to change in their lives, right? We're going to be all right. If Joe Biden can't manage, they will swap him out with the vice president. Vice president will take charge. And we will move on. And I don't have a lot of hopes for Joe Biden. I definitely don't have a lot of hopes for Kamala Harris. But pretty much these are status quo people. So that means that whether it's Biden or Kamala Harris, not much is going to change. And the risk of having a president who just can't manage the job, again, there's the vice president and there's their entire administration, right? He's just one guy. Worst case scenario, worst case scenario, 25th Amendment, they can kick him out, right? If he really, really gets to a bad point, they really want to push, they can, I'm sure there's ways that they can force him to have a cognitive test or something like that. And if he don't pass it, they can get enough numbers to vote him 25th Amendment out. So the regular people not politically involved, who are independents, they are going to vote for Joe Biden. However, here's the key detail where Cenk is off the rails, right? I believe we are in a frying pan and we're very likely going to die, right? And all these people like Cenk and others are online talking about, we need to get out the frying pan. We need to get out the frying pan. Get out the frying pan. Obviously, we're going to die. Look. And they're telling you, look at the temperature. Look at the temperature in the frying pan. But they're not discussing the fire that's right outside the frying pan. No one's even talking about that. It's just like, just tunnel vision. We have to get out the frying pan, get out the frying pan, and go where? Into the fire where it's hotter? Now, I would much rather many of these other candidates, but that's because I have the knowledge of what's going on in these people, right? I know the game. I know what's up. The average independent who's not politically activated doesn't have the knowledge that I have. So you mention somebody like Newsom, they never heard of. Who's this Newsom guy, right? You mention all these other people who they don't know, and maybe they hear some radical stuff on Fox News or whatever it is, and it seems risky. They know Joe Biden, right? They know Joe Biden, and even in his current state, and this is not, like Cenk is talking about his feelings. I'm dealing with facts. My feelings are, I agree with Cenk, right? But I'm not going on my feelings. The polling data that shows Biden versus Trump, Kamala Harris versus Trump, Newsom versus Trump. All the alternatives are trailing Joe Biden except for Kamala Harris by 1 point. I don't know if that's still the case now, but it was the case before the debate. And after the debate, we didn't see much of a change. But the bottom line is all the alternatives were the fire. Joe Biden is the frying pan, right? And again, you could disagree with me or whatever it is, but recognize that all the people talking about dumping Biden, they're not identifying who should replace Joe Biden. And the reason why they won't do that is because if they do that, you can easily show them that it's nonsense, because whatever name they pick, you will see is trailing Joe Biden. But if you don't mention a name, it's easy to just put out this idea that, oh, any generic Democrat would do better. And you focus on the polls. 70% of Americans think that Joe Biden is blah, blah. It doesn't matter what 70% of Americans feel about Joe Biden. 100% of Americans could think Joe Biden is an invalid. That doesn't matter. What matters is what they're going to do in November. That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter what they think about Joe Biden. What matters is what they're going to do in terms of voting. And the polls that show voting says Joe Biden is the best option. That doesn't make any sense to me. That is ridiculous to think that this old guy, who I don't think can manage another 4 years, is the best option. But that's what the voters are saying. That's what the polls are saying. Now, if the polls are wrong, let's discuss the polls. But they don't even talk about those polls. They only show you the polls that support their arguments. Oh, 7% of people think that Joe Biden is this, and Joe Biden is falling behind Trump. Yeah, I know that. But show me the poll that shows that in a versus Trump situation, they are better than Biden. They're all behind him by a significant degree, and it gets exponentially worse as you go down the list. Notice, again, the people talking about Joe Biden need to step down. They're not identified. Let me say this. If I were a progressive media channel, and I really believe that Joe Biden stepping down is the way to go, realizing that we don't have any time to play games, I would have focused my attention immediately on identifying who the best top 2 alternatives are. I'll be polling my audience. I'll try to get polls for people who are not my audience, so just average Joe people, right? As a big channel, I'll go out there and get this data. And then from that, identify who the top 2 alternatives are, identify that based on some data that demonstrates like, actually, these 2 would do better. And then I will be constantly telling people, I don't know why the Democrats won't replace Joe Biden with this person or this person. And not just randomly throwing out names. It will be names that I've selected based on doing an analysis, based on doing research. They're not doing that. They're not doing that because they're not serious. They want Trump to win because Trump is better for their business, right? So they're playing you for fools. They're distracting you and, oh, let's do this and let's sign a petition and this and that and that. Remember, Cenk is the one who told you Joe Biden was going to step down on Monday. I said, ain't no way he's stepping down on Monday. What happened on Monday? Joe Biden put a letter out saying, I ain't stepping down. Why is it that Cenk does this for a living? These commentators, they do this for a living. Why is it that I was aligned with what actually happened and they weren't? Because I'm dealing with facts and reality and they're dealing with feelings. We have the same feelings, but I don't make my decision based on my feelings. I make it based on data. There is no data that shows that anyone will do better than Joe Biden. That's embarrassing. That's sad. That's ridiculous to admit. I didn't think that. In the beginning, I was listening to these idiots online. I was like, yeah, of course, a generic Democrat. Well, as soon as I started looking at it, the data was like, no, son. Now, this can change. And there could be flaws in that logic. The way this can change is a major collapse from Joe Biden, especially if it involves him going to the hospital. Another major thing would be if there is some new data that suggests that there's a better alternative. And that's the key thing. They're not going to change him because they don't have a better option. And until they've identified a better option, they're not going to change, right? Joe Biden's not going to step down. He's going to be the guy. Why would they dump him for somebody who's worse? But here is one potential reason why actually changing him could work, even though the polls suggest otherwise. Just like how, even though I don't have any positive views towards Joe Biden, I would vote for him to get rid of Trump. Polls are a tricky thing. When you ask people about these polls, they were not in a situation where we are now. You know, when all is said and done, if we swap out Joe Biden with any generic Democrat, let's say Newsom, even that the Democrat voters don't know who Newsom is. Many don't know who he is. If they sufficiently fairmonger enough about Project 2025 and what's coming next, will the voters really care that they don't know who Newsom is and, you know, he's an unfamiliar name? I mean, they might be upset about dumping Joe Biden, some of them anyway. When it comes to election day, would they be comfortable sitting by and allowing Trump to take power? So that is the one scenario where another Democrat could actually do better, even though the data doesn't say this. And that's because you can't really predict the future. And those polls are not going to necessarily reflect the thought process when things really get real. You know, the election is a month away. Newsom has been the selected guy. The one catch with that is that they need to be watching the news at all. Because if you're someone who's a Democrat voter and you don't watch the news, then you're not going to have the fear of Trump and the Project 2025 and, you know, what's coming next. And if you're not excited about Joe Biden and you don't have that significant fear, then maybe you don't even go vote. Right? So that's the big problem. That's why it's risky swapping it, because you're taking a gamble. I guess the other logical way where it could make sense is, yes, you're taking a gamble, but currently they're on a path to lose. So In theory, you can't do worse than losing. I mean, you could lose worse, but I mean, ultimately you still lose. So by switching to candidates, you're introducing an unknown where that unknown could result in a win. It's possible. But if you stay on the current path, I mean, you could still win, but I mean, it's not very likely. So I guess a potential thing to think about is if we get to a point where Joe Biden losing is a major certainty, then at that point it might be worth the chance of switching, because if you do nothing, you know you're going to lose. If you swap, maybe you get lucky. But I mean, man, that's some dicey stuff, putting the fate of the country based on, doing stuff. But I mean, again, if we're on that path, but we're not there yet. I mean, you're talking about Trump having if Trump gets like a 10 to 15 point lead or something ridiculous like that, I think at that point it's time to ignore what the polls are saying, because if there's a chance that swapping him could end up working out, I think it's better to take that chance than to continue with a sure loss. Anyway, those are my thoughts. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.